Good evening, N3 Primetime viewers. Angie Russ here, and do we have an explosive lineup for you tonight? Gary Franchi is diving deep into 5 groundbreaking stories that you need to know more about. From the unexpected move of Trump avoiding the GOP debates to the potentially game-changing implications of the Inflation Reduction Act. We're also delving into the auction of Trump's border wall sections, the rising popularity of Trump as the 2024 election approaches, and the intense revelations brought forward by the former White House advisor, Stephen Miller. But that's not all. Stick around for the comments section where we spotlight your thoughts. And in our Looking at You segment, there's someone making waves you'll want to know more about. Plus an exclusive interview with Donald Trump's co-defendant in the Georgia indictment. Ready for a deep dive? Over to you, Gary.
Good evening. Welcome to N3 Primetime. Every story we bring you is a reflection of the ever-shifting tapestry of our nation's heartbeat. Whether it's Trump's bold decision to sidestep the GOP debates or the looming concerns around the Inflation Reduction Act and our green future's dependency on China, well, it's clear that our country's at a crossroads. Trump's border wall materials on sale, CNN's ever-evolving stance on the former president, and Stephen Miller's explosive revelations and our exclusive interview tonight, they all echo a sentiment. The foundations of our republic are undergoing a transformation. But speaking of foundation, let's discuss something foundational to our lives, our finances. Remember, since the 70s, the U.S. dollar has been, seen a dip of 85% of its value. With elections on the horizon, the government's potential to print endless money poses significant inflation risk. Much like how gold stands unwavering in the tempest, it remains a bulwark against inflation. So think of it this way. In the ever-changing sea of American politics and economics, gold is your anchor. So choose to invest wisely with Noble Gold Investments. And for those diving in right now, there is a free quarter-ounce gold standard coin. I got it right here. It's a beauty. It's waiting for you. So visit noblegoldinvestments.com or give them a call at 877-646-5347. And even if you're not investing, give them a call and tell them thank you for sponsoring this program and ensure your future is anchored. Now let's turn our attention back to the heart of the matter. Angie, what can we expect from your news briefs this evening?
Thanks, Gary. Here are some of the stories I will be covering tonight. CBS makes a Biden blunder. Was it a mere mistake or a telling truth? Florida Governor DeSantis takes a surprising swipe at MAGA, causing ripples in Republican ranks. Chairman Comer brings Biden's emails into the spotlight, seeking transparency amidst suspicions. Over in North Carolina, vandalism against a political sign ignites fiery debates, literally. And lastly, rising star Oliver Anthony's tune, Rich Men North of Richmond, is more than just a hit. It's a heartfelt call for unity in divisive times. Curious about these stories? You should be. They're more than just headlines. They shape our conversations and reflect our society's pulse. Gary, Trump's bypassing the GOP debates for an exclusive with Carlson. A game changer or just modern politics in action?
Tonight we bring you a tale of soaring numbers, a political titan, and a decision that has left many gasping for breath. Imagine being so confident in your leadership, so assured in your past record, you decline a platform traditionally used to persuade voters. That's right, President Trump has officially declared he will not grace the GOP debates with his presence. Why? A staggering 46-point lead in the latest CBS News poll. But dear viewers, as you settle into this narrative, stay with us. By the end of the report, we'll reveal a final thought that will lay bare the implications of this decision. Why does it matter? And how does it resonate with the core of our nation's ethos? You don't want to miss it. So ladies and gentlemen, let's discuss a political phenomenon that's unfolding right before our eyes. Imagine for a moment that you're at the pinnacle of political popularity. So much so that traditional avenues of asserting dominance seem redundant. This is the reality of former President Donald Trump. And on Sunday, Trump pulled a move that's left the political elites reeling. And it's about time we unpacked it. First off, let's address the elephant in the room. The CBS News YouGov poll, a whopping 46-point lead over the closest competition. Governor Ron DeSantis, just let that sink in. In a world where political margins are often razor thin, Trump has managed to amass a legendary lead. But like the shrewd businessman he's always been, Trump isn't stopping there. Rather than partake in the dog and pony show of debates, Trump has chosen to sidestep it all Quote, "The public knows who I am and what a successful presidency I had." That's what he said. Can you blame him? The numbers do the talking. The CBS poll isn't just numbers on paper, it's a manifestation of the public sentiment. Trump at 62% with DeSantis trailing distantly. Everyone else, well, they're barely scraping the barrel. But here's where it gets intriguing. While the mainstream media might want you to believe that this is Trump dodging a challenge, it's anything but. The man is strategizing, folks. ABC News gave us a glimpse into Trump's playbook. Instead of joining a crowded debate stage, Trump opted for a one-on-one with Tucker Carlson. That's right, an exclusive. So why share the limelight when you can own the entire stage? Classic Trump. Now the establishment has been quick to lay out the rules for these debates. The Republican National Committee had their list of requirements: donor counts, poll percentages, and of course the loyalty pledge. But here's where Trump, ever the maverick, shakes things up. He qualifies but sidesteps the pledge. It's not defiance, it's independence. And Trump is signaling that he's not just another politician. He is a force of nature. And that CBS poll, not just a testament to Trump's popularity, it's a mirror reflecting the public sentiment. A staggering 99% of GOP primary voters believe things were rosier under Trump. They believe he is their champion. This isn't just support, it's unwavering loyalty. Now, I do remember a time when debates were the proving ground for candidates, but we live in a new age. Trump, with his finger always on the pulse, recognizes this. Why dance to the media's tune when you can create your own symphony? Earlier this year, he made his thoughts clear, questioning the need to engage with potentially hostile networks. And he's right. Why subject oneself to loaded questions and veiled jabs, especially when you're leading by miles? And for those thinking this was a whimsical decision, think again. Trump has been hinting at this move, drawing parallels with past leaders like Reagan. He emphasized that the public knows his record. They know his triumphs. They know his economic highs, the tax cuts, the fortified border, all hallmarks of his tenure. And now he believes it's time to let those achievements speak for themselves. There were attempts, of course, to bring Trump back into the fold. RNC chair Romney McDaniel even made a trip to Trump's Bedminster Golf Club. But Trump's decision stands firm. It's a testament to his unwavering confidence and a sign that he is playing the game by his rules. As the GOP prepares for the debates, there is an undeniable void. Trump's absence is both a challenge and an opportunity for the remaining candidates. They'll need to step out of his looming shadow and assert their visions. But let's be real. Even in his absence, Trump will dominate the discourse. The other candidates will invariably find themselves drawn into discussions about his policies, his decisions, and his overarching influence. But here's the final twist. By opting for an exclusive interview over the debates, Trump isn't just playing defense, he's going on the offensive. He's challenging the status quo and traditional media dynamics. By controlling the narrative, he ensures that his voice, unfiltered and undiluted, reaches the masses. It's a masterclass in modern political strategy. Ladies and gentlemen, as the political scene heats up, one thing is abundantly clear. Trump, with his decisions and strategies, continues to redefine political engagement. The upcoming weeks promise to be a riveting spectacle, and the direction of the GOP hangs in the balance. Trump's decision, audacious and unpredicted, has set the stage. And as always, the voice of the people will be the deciding factor. And beyond the statistics and Trump's undeniable influence, the situation underscores a broader cultural shift in American politics. The modern political landscape isn't just about policies and promises. It's about narratives, perceptions, and media dominance. Trump, perhaps more than any other figure in recent history, understands this new reality. The man has an uncanny knack for capturing headlines, stirring discussions, and keeping the media dancing to his tunes. Isn't it curious? Even as Trump pulls away from the debates, he remains their central figure. Each candidate will inevitably be asked about him, about his policies and his influence. This is the mark of a political heavyweight, a figure so central to the discourse that his mere absence becomes the story. Moreover, Trump, his move, is a lesson in modern strategy. While the mainstream media might still hold sway, the power dynamics are shifting. Direct communication, be it through social media or exclusive interviews, is becoming the favored tool of savvy politicians. Trump's decision to prioritize an interview over debate is not an evasion. It's a calculated redirection of attention. He's ensuring that come debate night, all eyes will still be on him. In the end, this isn't just about one man's decision to attend or skip a debate. It's about understanding the pulse of the nation, about realizing where true power lies in the age of instant information. And as the political sands shift beneath our feet, one thing is certain, with or without Trump's debates: his influence on the GOP and the nation at large is here to stay. And as we conclude this deep dive into Trump's decision and the dynamics at play, it's crucial to ponder the broader implications. What does it mean for a political figure to bypass a long-standing tradition fortified by a commanding lead in the polls? It's not just about debate. It's about a shift in how politics is perceived and executed. Trump's move underscores a changing landscape where the traditional platforms might no longer be the primary arenas to win hearts and minds. Instead, personal narratives, direct communication, and media dominance seem to be the order of the day. For the American people, it's a testament to the evolving nature of our republic. In a world of instant gratification, 24/7 news cycles, staying relevant and controlling the narrative might just be the new way to lead. And as always, the voice of the people will determine its success. Angie, CBS News slip-up calling President Biden a former president? I guess it's got the internet buzzing. Was it just an oversight or something more telling?
CBS News faced significant backlash on social media after mistakenly referring to President Joe Biden as former president in a post on Platform X. While CBS quickly corrected the error, acknowledging their mistake, the initial post had already been widely shared and mocked. Critics, including prominent conservative figures, suggested that the slip might have been a subconscious reflection of the nation's discontent with Biden's performance. The mistake was highlighted amid growing criticism of Biden's leadership, especially concerning the border crisis and his falling approval ratings. Many online speculated if the gaffe was unintentional or a deliberate act by the media outlet. Dive deeper, get the whole story by tapping the link in our bio. Now we turn to a controversial claim about the Biden administration and its alleged ties to China. Gary, what's the latest?
I've got an exclusive special report right now that will surely shake the foundations of your trust in the Biden administration. Was the Inflation Reduction Act signed a year ago really about America's future? Or was it a secret gift to communist China? As we dive deep into the shocking revelations by the energy group Power the Future, you'll discover a web of agendas and questionable intentions. And remember, you don't want to switch off your screens, because by the end of this broadcast, I have a final thought you simply cannot afford to miss. Are America's interests truly at the heart of the Biden administration? Or is there a darker, more sinister plan at play? Stay with us. So when President Biden signed the Inflation Reduction Act into law, many Americans believed they were taking a step towards a brighter, more sustainable future. But as details emerge, this narrative is being challenged. The scathing report by Power the Future raises questions that every American should be concerned about. Is our path to a green future paved with concessions to communist China? Where green meets red is more than just a catchy title. It's a 14-page white paper that paints a troubling picture. The mining landscape in places like the Congo is grim. Children barely past their infancy are plunged into a world of grueling labor. And overseeing a significant portion of those mines? China. The report delves deeper, revealing that China might control up to 80% of the production and processing of energy minerals essential for the renewable machinery the Biden administration champions. This isn't a mere market share. It's an alarming dominance reminiscent of the power OPEC once held over the oil industry. So what does that mean for America? It's more than just dollars and cents. It's about our very independence. As the Biden administration pushes its green agenda, we might be inadvertently chaining our nation to the strategic whims of China. Now let's talk solutions. Senator Barrasso's Supporting American Independence and Innovation Act aims to put America back in the driver's seat. By emphasizing American innovation and reducing our reliance on external forces, it seeks to pen an energy future where America is both the author and the beneficiary. However, Biden's mining ban stands as a roadblock. By stifling our own mining industry, we're not only hamstringing our economy, but also sending an open invitation to China to step in and fill the void. If America is to truly be independent, we must harness our own resources for our people, by our people. Further, to truly tap into our potential, we need reforms, permitting reforms. By streamlining processes, cutting red tape, we can amplify our mining production, ensuring that the heart of America's energy sector beats strong and true. But here I'd like to pause and consider a parallel that underscores the gravity of our situation. Talking about the U.S. dollar, it's lost a staggering 85% of its value since the 70s, and just as our energy independence is being compromised, our currency faces challenges. And what's the government's solution? Print more money, which could further fuel inflation. But remember, there is a lifeline. Gold has always stood firm against inflation. Investing with Noble Gold Investments not only secures your future, but also gifts you a 24-karat quarter-ounce gold standard coin. Dial 877-646-5347 or visit noblegoldinvestments.com. They are the gold standard I personally trust. And continuing on, we have to address Biden's electric vehicle mandates. While the promise of a nation humming to the tune of electric vehicles sounds, well, enchanting, we must question the cost. Are these mandates silently deepening our dependency on foreign minerals and, by extension, foreign powers like China? And lastly, about the money. American tax dollars, the fruit of our collective labor, should not find its way into foreign coffers. The Inflation Reduction Act's tax credits need a revisit. Every dollar should be a step towards strengthening American energy and not a contribution to foreign enterprises. Daniel Turner, the president of Power of the Future, well, he didn't mince his words. According to him, the IRA is a golden goose for the Chinese Communist Party. It's a bitter pill to swallow, realizing that our tax dollars might indirectly support practices like child labor overseas, while opportunities on American soil are choked. It's not just external voices. Even from within Biden's ranks, there is dissent. Senator Joe Manchin has been a vocal critic, highlighting what he sees as overreach. When members from the president's own party wave red flags, it's a moment for national reflection. And every American must ask, is the Inflation Reduction Act truly for America's benefit? Or is it a Trojan horse masking deeper concessions to international interests? As we wrap up this special report, it's crucial to understand what's at stake: our nation's security, our energy independence, and the very essence of what it means to be American. The revelations from Power of the Future aren't just a critique of the Biden administration, but a clarion call for every citizen. We must demand transparency, prioritize American interests, and question every move that places our great nation in a position of vulnerability. Not just about politics, it's about the future of our children, our jobs, and our national identity. Stay vigilant, stay informed, and remember, America's strength lies in its unity and its undying spirit of truth and justice. So let's safeguard our future together. Now, once a staunch Trump ally, Governor DeSantis is shaking up the GOP with his latest remarks. Is this a political pivot, or is he echoing a larger sentiment within the Republican ranks? Angie has more.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis stirred controversy after criticizing MAGA supporters in Congress and their loyalty to former President Trump. Once regarded as a fervent Trump advocate and potential protege, DeSantis has experienced declining poll numbers, recently trailing figures like Chris Christie and Vivek Ramaswamy. His comments denouncing certain Republicans as listless vessels have sparked outrage among conservatives, who view Trump as emblematic of their values. Many have branded DeSantis a rhino, Republican in name only. Amid the backdrop of a GOP still grappling with the 2020 election aftermath, DeSantis' stance has intensified divisions within the party. With the 2024 elections looming, the Republican unity challenge is starkly evident. Dive deeper, get the whole story by tapping the link in our bio. From national defense symbol to auction item, Trump's border wall faces a new chapter under Biden. Gary, over to you for more details.
And now a special report you do not want to miss. Imagine a crucial barrier designed to protect, now being offloaded on a surplus website. Trump's steel border wall, once hailed as an emblem of national security, now finds itself up for auction section by section. And the race is on. The Biden administration hurrying to sell it all off before new legislation mandates its use. Why the haste? And at what cost to our nation's defense? All these questions will be answered. And if you're thinking about clicking away, don't. By the end of this report, we're going to lay out a final thought that you will not want to miss. In the digital era, from vintage records to antique furniture, you can find almost anything for sale online. But would you expect to find sections of America's border wall on the internet? The Biden administration does. On a military surplus site called GovPlanet, they've been auctioning off pieces of what was once heralded as the key to America's border security. In a report by the Daily Mail, since April, 81 batches of structural tubing and steel columns have been auctioned. Meanwhile, as these sales occur, the crisis amplifies. Illegal border crossings have surged, reaching almost record levels in July. But here's the twist. While the border remains porous, our defense materials are being sold at what seems like bargain prices. Just last week, 700 28-foot hollow beams were auctioned for a mere $212 each, generating a total of $154,000. Do the math, and it's clear we're selling our safety short. As more lots are prepared for auction this month, the Republicans cry foul. They estimate that up to $300 million of taxpayer-funded wall components have languished since the Biden administration took office. And it's estimated that over $2 billion in materials are just sitting at the border. Watch.
In tonight's Whatever Happened To segment, we look at the much-discussed wall along the southern border. It apparently presents a large and expensive problem for many people. Senior correspondent Casey Stiegel explains from El Paso, Texas.
On a blazing hot summer day, piles of steel beams sit unused on a New Mexico ranch along the southern border.
There's a huge amount of taxpayer waste here.
Russell Johnson says this material has been on his cattle ranch for more than 2.5 years after President Biden took office and halted construction of the border wall, and there's nothing he can legally do about it.
If I ran my business like the federal government's run this project, I'd be broke.
Under President Trump, the feds approved $15 billion to build approximately 740 miles of border barrier. Contracts were secured, supplies were purchased. However, only 450 miles were completed before the plug was pulled.
We're talking somewhere around $2 billion worth of materials that have been just sitting down there.
Last month, the Army Corps of Engineers told a joint Homeland Security subcommittee there are close to 21,000 unused panels at various sites.
We're looking at about $160,000 a month for the storage of the material.
The Corps says it's in the process of removing excess wall materials. What's not clear, how much is being repurposed and what's being thrown away.
None of the witnesses here can tell us how much of the American taxpayers' precious dollars spent on first quality goods have been disposed of as scrap.
Russell Johnson also testified at that hearing, personally inviting lawmakers to his ranch.
Bring them out here to the places between the port of entry where all of these illegal crossings are happening. The ultimate goal is ultimately to finish the wall.
Johnson says he is still in the dark about the future of this project, while DHS says it is working to fill in some smaller gaps and gates that were not originally finished. Brett?
Casey Stiegel in El Paso.
Unbelievable. And in the very manner that Biden seems to be trimming away at our border wall, and some might argue our national security, there are indeed moments in life when trimming is essential. Take our own health, for example. A starting 74% of U.S. adults are overweight, 40% of those classified as obese. Sometimes cutting back, especially on our weight, can be for the better. That's why I'd like to introduce you to this all-natural supplement infused with ingredients gifted from Mother Nature, such as CLA. This product aids in reducing fat storage and expediting its breakdown. And just as we're witnessing the reductions in our border security, maybe it's time to embrace the right kind of cutbacks in our lives. So get started on your health journey with an exclusive 51% discount and exciting bonuses. So don't wait. Visit trimwithgary.com and make the right kind of trim in your life. Now, looming legislation called the Finish It Act aims to change the entire narrative. A bipartisan product of a Democrat-led Senate, the act's goal is clear. Use these materials to extend the wall or let Texas use them for its border defense initiatives. The New York Post suggests that the Biden administration is in the race against time, trying to liquidate the remnants of the wall before the GOP-led House can seal the act into law. Senator Roger Wicker, the bill's sponsor, well, he lambasted the move as wasteful and ludicrous decision. He accuses the Biden administration of a shameful act, terming it as outrageous, behind-the-scenes maneuvering. Senator Tom Cotton echoes the sentiment, condemning the apparent contradiction in Biden's policies. He said, quote, leaving the border open to terrorists while selling border security materials at a loss is Bidenomics in a nutshell. And the voices against this move don't stop there. Senator James Lankford expressed concerns about the future repercussions. He said, quote, the pennies made from selling the border wall will not be enough to pay the families who suffer from the criminal act committed by someone who crossed our open borders during the Biden administration. Representative Elise Stefanik called the action reckless, emphasizing the ongoing threats to national security. The sentiment is clear. Every district now feels like a border district, vulnerable and exposed. Pima County, Arizona houses these tubes in outdoor storage lots simply termed as excess border wall materials. And according to Lieutenant Colonel David T. Robinson, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has already transferred materials worth approximately $154 million with a $260 million inventory. Inside sources, you ready for this? Hint at a gag order. An insider from the Daily Upside divulged that GovPlanet employees were instructed to remain silent about the Border Wall Association. Another source revealed, quote, we are legally not allowed to mention these are border wall materials or we could lose our jobs. Social media, however, isn't blind. Despite the listings refraining from specifying the tube's original intent, astute viewers on the company's Instagram made their sentiments clear. One comment read, good for building a wall. Another added, this is why taxpayers are just about done paying taxes. Representative Juan Ciscomani summed up the scenario. He said, quote, the federal government needs to utilize every tool to secure our border. Instead of aligning with this vision, these materials have been, in his words, squandered, first collecting dust in the desert and now being auctioned off. As we wrap up this special report, let's remember a nation's security is its bedrock. The very essence of governance is to safeguard its citizens. By sidelining materials meant to fortify our borders, are we not compromising on the promise of a safer America? It isn't about politics, left or right. It's about right and wrong. Selling the wall isn't just selling steel. It feels like selling out on security. Every piece auctioned, every beam sold at a discount is a testament to misplaced priorities. And the urgency with which these materials are being liquidated before the Finish It Act becomes law, well, that's food for thought. As American citizens, the choice remains with us. Will we remain silent spectators, or will we voice out for the security we were promised? Stay vigilant, America, because as history has shown, it's the walls left unbuilt that enemies walk through. Angie, Chairman Comer is turning up the heat on the Biden administration, seeking clarity on those encrypted emails. As suspicions grow, how might this impact the Biden legacy and our trust in the presidency?
House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer has called for the National Archives to release unredacted records of communications between President Joe Biden and his son Hunter amid suspicions of pseudonymous interactions. Comer's request stems from revelations suggesting President Biden used pseudonyms in emails, further questioning the involvement of Hunter in government affairs. Allegations focus on Biden's efforts in Ukraine to protect Hunter from an investigation by the then Ukrainian prosecutor Shokin. The timeframes link Biden's travel to Ukraine pressing for Shokin's removal and a potential quid pro quo scenario. The committee aims to decipher the role of pseudonyms, further probing the relationship between the Bidens and their associates. Comer's demand anticipates a political tempest challenging the president's transparency and potential misuse of power. Dive deeper, get the whole story by tapping the link in our bio. Gary, even CNN can't ignore the resurgence of Trump's popularity within the GOP base. As the election landscape evolves, what's behind the surprising narrative shift, and how might it impact the 2024 race?
In the fierce arena of media, when an unexpected source acknowledges the undeniable, the nation takes notice. CNN, often referred to as the Clinton News Network for its strong pro-Democrat bias, has made a startling admission. Their recent analysis paints a picture that's shaking the core of their usual narrative. The channel, which rarely misses a chance to critique the former president Donald Trump, now highlights his undeniable rise in popularity as we edge closer to the 2024 general election. It raises questions. Is the political landscape shifting more than we imagine? And what does this mean for incumbent President Joe Biden? As the anticipation for 2024 grows, today we dive deep into this surprising change in narrative from one of America's leading news networks. Stay with us to the end. The final thought promises a perspective that every American needs to hear. As we march steadily towards the 2024 general election, surprising shifts in narratives are taking center stage, and one such dramatic pivot comes from CNN, a network known for its staunch pro-Democrat leanings. And what's causing the buzz? Well, the rising tide in former President Donald Trump's popularity. The gravity of this shift is profound. Remember, this is the 2023 CNN we're discussing, often dubbed the Clinton News Network for its explicit biases. And for such a platform to make even the slightest nod to Trump's growing influence speaks volumes about the changing tides of American politics. CNN's Henry Enton, in a Saturday analysis, embarked on a journey many would expect from a left-leaning journalist, emphasizing Trump's controversial past and the various allegations against him. But as he delved deeper, the narrative began to shift. Now let's pause here and watch the clip to witness the weight of Enton's acknowledgement. Take a look.
Look here. This is Quinnipiac University. It was a 2-point race in February. Look where it is now. It's a 1-point race. That's well within the margin of error. But take away one thing from this, and one thing only if you take away only one thing. And that is, I think there are a lot of Democrats who simply can't believe that Donald Trump can be elected president again. The polling indicates that Trump is, in fact, in a stronger position at this point than he was during the entire 2020 campaign, according to the national polls. If we had state-level polling, I wouldn't even be surprised if Trump were ahead in the swing states that are most important, Jim.
Right, and when the race is that close, it comes down to the Electoral College, and who knows what happens with that. We don't even have those kinds of numbers just yet, but from a national standpoint, you're absolutely right. It is remarkable where Trump stands right now when it comes to the rest of this field and with general election voters. Harry Enton, as always, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Be sure to check out Harry's podcast, Margins of...
Resuming our dive after highlighting the strongest sentiments against Trump, Enton's tone took a surprising turn. He pointed out the vast support Trump still holds within the Republican faction, a fact that's becoming harder to ignore. Despite the general public's revelations and reservations, Trump's foothold remains strong, especially when it comes to the looming face-off with President Joe Biden. This dichotomy isn't a mere blip on the radar. It's a significant political undercurrent reshaping the landscape as we know it. When CNN's Jim Acosta delved deeper into this trend with Enton, the revelations were even more startling. Not only is Trump's position potent, but it's also stronger than during his entire 2020 campaign. The figures bolster this narrative even further. A remarkable 54% of Republicans harbor a highly favorable view of Trump, marking an 11-point surge from the year's outset. Now, just as CNN's ratings seem to be taking a hit while Trump's influence surges, perhaps it's a wake-up call for many of us to reflect on our personal journeys. Aging, like dwindling ratings, affects us all, causing muscle loss after 30. But as Trump showcases, with the right strategy and ingredients, a resurgence is always possible. Similarly, consider giving your body the boost it deserves, using a blend of MyHMB creatine, betanine, And, well, D3. Embrace a revival. Breathe new life in your muscles, bolster endurance, and thrive. Visit gainwithgary.com and harness the surge in your life. Now back to the political landscape. CNN's unexpected narrative shift raises eyebrows and sparks numerous questions. Are other major news outlets also grappling with similar revelations? Is the 2024 election poised to be a turning point in American politics? With the end's acknowledgement of Trump's undeniable momentum, the media landscape seems to be on the brink of a significant overhaul. Witnessing CNN's grapple with Trump's rising popularity is akin to observing a seismic shift in real time. But as we immerse ourselves in the ongoing narratives and subtle shifts in tone, a glaring truth emerges. The 2020 general election won't be straightforward. For conservatives and Republicans, this is not a cue for complacency. Yes, Biden's media allies are echoing their concerns, yet the pathway to the White House remains riddled with challenges. Every turn, every revelation, every shift in sentiment will play a crucial role. While CNN and Enton are coming to terms with Trump's rising tide, the general sentiment remains cautious. The upcoming electoral battle promises to be intense. The outcome is anything but certain. Current polls might paint a rosy picture for Trump, but as history has demonstrated, predictions can falter, narratives can shift, and elections can surprise. The months leading up to the 2024 general election will be charged with anticipation. The stakes are incredibly high, and the nation waits with bated breath. As the dynamics evolve and campaigns intensify, Americans must remain vigilant, informed, and engaged. The CNN episode serves as a reminder that in politics, as in life, change is the only constant. Isn't it truly remarkable how the winds of political discourse change? CNN, the behemoth of pro-Democrat storytelling, suddenly finding itself caught in the whirlwind of Trump's undeniable momentum. It's a theater of the absurd, watching them fumble and grapple with the former president's growing influence. Their subtle, almost reluctant admissions speak volumes more than any overt praise. Their brand, once built on dismissing Trump at every turn, now reckons with the reality they once deemed impossible. As America edges closer to the 2020 general election, it seems the script is being rewritten right under CNN's nose. And while they try to make sense of this, one thing becomes crystal clear. Never underestimate the resilience of Donald Trump or the wisdom of the American people. Sometimes the loudest message is delivered in the quietest of tones and through the most unexpected of messengers. Tensions are flaring in Raleigh, North Carolina, after a cyclist's brazen act against a homeowner's political sign. What do we know, Ange?
A Nest camera in Raleigh, North Carolina recorded a cyclist vandalizing and later setting fire to a resident Trump supporting sign. The cyclist, recognizable by a unique forearm tattoo, repeatedly kicked the sign before igniting it with a kitchen lighter. Although the fire didn't spread, homeowner John Kane termed the act as terror against American democracy, offering a $1,000 reward for information leading to the perpetrator. Podcaster host Tim Pool has added an additional $5,000 to the reward, urging swift justice. This incident highlights the escalating tensions and actions some individuals are taking in the current political landscape. Dive deeper, get the whole story by tapping the link in our bio. Stephen Miller's claims about justice system biases are causing a stir. What's the GOP's response and the implications for Americans? Gary has more.
In the theatrical arena of American politics, every so often a voice rises, sending shockwaves across the nation, triggering jubilant reactions from unexpected quarters. This week, that voice belonged to Stephen Miller, and if the corridors of power could talk, they tell tales of Trump's unmistakable delight. Trump no doubt cheering as Miller drops major justice bombshell isn't just a headline. It's a pulse of a political realm caught in the aftermath of Miller's revelations. As the story unfolds tonight, dive deeper into the implications of this declaration and the undercurrents it sent through the very foundations of our justice system. Stay with us, because by the end of this special report, you'll understand why this story isn't just about declarations. It's about the heart and soul of American justice. Now, there's a storm brewing on the political horizon, and its epicenter seems to be none other than Stephen Miller, former White House advisor. As an engaged viewer, you're no stranger to the shifting winds of politics, but Miller's recent appearance on Fox News has catapulted a pressing narrative into the public's conscience. This isn't just another tale of political bickering. It's an in-depth look at what might be the weaponization of America's justice system. Historically, the prosecutor's office has stood as an emblem of justice, an unbiased pillar holding our societal values aloft. However, the narrative presented by Miller paints a starkly different picture. The weighty 96 felony charges against former President Trump is not just an isolated case, but a symptom of a more significant, more corrosive melee. And according to Miller, justice as we know it is morphing into a tool of political vendetta, a tool that, if wielded recklessly, could dismantle the democratic foundations we hold dear. So let's give you a closer look at Miller's concerns. His words on the recent legal actions paint a compelling and concerning portrait of our nation's current state. Take a look.
Dark new era in American history in which the prosecutor's office has been weaponized and been transformed into an instrument of political repression. And anybody thinking this stops here, anybody thinking that, well, this will be it, and then the Democrats will move on, the radical left will move on, is living in a delusion. They are living in an absolute fantasy. If you can get away with having a local prosecutor or Maine justice take over a presidential election, throw innocent people in jail for decades potentially, you can prosecute and incarcerate Republican attorneys for the crime, the thought crime of providing legal counsel with which the prosecutor disagrees. There's no limiting principle here. It will be open legal season on Republicans. And the only way this ends, and I hate to say it, but it's true, is if Republicans return lawfare in kind. That is the only way you could ever create the political conditions for a ceasefire. Otherwise, one side gets pulverized, and it keeps getting pulverized.
And you think that the House Republicans should start making criminal referrals to the Department of Justice. Is that right?
Yes, I think you have to take a hard look at both the Russia hoax conspiracy, well, all of these things, the Russia hoax conspiracy, the open borders criminal and cartel conspiracy, the suppression of First Amendment speech conspiracy, the deprivation of civil rights by the Biden administration and local prosecutors, and on down through the list, and of course Joe Biden and the RICO conspiracy involving him and his children. And you take all of that and you begin crafting criminal referrals to the Department of Justice, which can then be taken up in 2025 under an honest DOJ.
Now, I can already hear the echoes of our critics, those quick to dismiss these concerns as hyperbole or alarmist, but step back for a moment and consider. If such punitive measures can target a former president, what's the shield protecting ordinary American citizens? Does holding a political opinion, especially a dissenting one, now come with the risk of legal backlash? But as we delve into this alarming paradigm shift, let's take a brief intermission to touch upon life's other unpredictabilities. Political upheavals might take center stage, but daily life brings its own set of unforeseen challenges. Natural disasters, economic downturns, and personal emergencies don't offer prior warnings. Just like in politics, being prepared is half the battle won. So consider this. My Patriot Supply is presently offering a generous 25% discount on their 3-month emergency food kit. Safeguard your loved ones from life's unforeseen challenges. Ensure their well-being with a visit to preparewithgary.com and grab this limited time offer. Now, refocusing on Miller's call to arms, he doesn't just raise alarm bells without offering a solution. He charts a strategic course, urging the Republican Party to meet this challenge head on. This isn't about petty political skirmishes. It's about safeguarding the very fabric of our democracy, of our republic. Miller believes that only by meeting lawfare with lawfare can this trend of politicized investigations be halted. In his discourse, Miller doesn't mince words. He highlights a series of alleged misconducts ranging from the Russia hoax conspiracy to purported infringements on First Amendment rights. There's a discernible urgency in his tone, a pressing need to scrutinize both past and present allegations. He even alludes to potential RICO conspiracies enveloping President Biden and his immediate family. His objective? Constructing robust criminal referrals aimed squarely at the Department of Justice. These aren't mere insinuations. These are calculated steps aimed at ensuring justice remains unsullied by political biases. Miller's concerns don't end there. He voices apprehensions about a surge in politically driven prosecutions, terminating the trend as bone-chilling. But this isn't just a commentary on the state of affairs, it's a call to action. The weight of the responsibility that Miller believes rests firmly on the shoulders of House lawmakers. Their authority to send criminal referrals extends beyond federal boundaries, penetrating local jurisdictions. And for Miller, it's an all-encompassing vision of justice, a system safeguarded against potential misuse at all levels. Concluding his impassioned plea, Miller outlines a dream for America, an America where justice remains blind to political affiliations, where all citizens, regardless of their beliefs, are judged by the same unbiased standards. As the winds of political change continue to whip across our nation, Miller's revelations underscore a pivotal crossroad in our journey. As engaged citizens, the question remains, will we merely be bystanders, or will we rise to protect the sanctity of justice in America? Reflecting on tonight's revelations, one can't help but visualize Trump, perhaps in Mar-a-Lago, his trademark confidence evident, raising a toast to Miller's declaration. The synergy between Trump's spirit and Miller's words paint a vivid picture of a political alliance rooted in shared ideals. But beyond the camaraderie and celebration lies a profound question about our justice system. It's a question that transcends party lines, probing the essence of our principles of our republic. If the justice system, a cornerstone of our republic, becomes a tool for political maneuvering, where does that leave the ordinary American? As Trump undoubtedly celebrates Miller's bold stance, it's time for every American, regardless of affiliation, to reflect. Is our justice system merely a plaything in the hands of the mighty? Or can it reclaim its stature as an unbiased pillar of our great nation? The future, dear viewers, hinges on our answer. Oliver Anthony's hit, Rich Men North of Richmond, a song I really enjoy. It's not just a song. It's a call for unity and understanding in a divided society. Angie has more details.
Oliver Anthony's track Rich Men North of Richmond rapidly rose to fame on YouTube, but the story behind its widespread acclaim is alarming. Anthony shared on his channel the song's inspiration, highlighting social frustrations and a diminishing sense of community. He questioned the enduring impact of his message, urging listeners to reflect on personal actions, fostering positivity and unity. Lamenting over society's inclination towards divisiveness, he emphasized the potential for overwhelming compassion and the importance of bridging gaps with those different from us. Anthony's poignant message serves as a plea for unity, kindness, and a collective effort to shape a more inclusive future. Dive deeper, get the whole story by tapping the link in our bio. That's all the news I have for tonight. Now back to Gary.
And now, a special interview here on N3 Primetime. We venture into the heart of a story that epitomizes the political turbulence of our times. Ever since the conclusion of the 2016 elections, former President Donald Trump has found himself at the epicenter of relentless legal and political scrutiny, often referred to by many as the Trump witch hunt. Allegations, investigations, and indictments have been a recurrent theme, casting shadows on not just political figures, but also those who are tangentially related. And one such indictment has swept up an Illinois pastor in the political whirlwind surrounding the former president. With us in studio is Reverend Stephen Lee, and he's a co-defendant in the indictment. Alongside him, his attorney, David Shistokas, who will shed light on a story that's gripping the nation. Reverend Lee, he's an American hero with a storied past ranging from his commendable services as an NCIS special agent to his empathetic role as a chaplain during trying times like 9/11 and Hurricane Katrina. Well, he's now facing unexpected charges after alleged efforts to contact an election worker in Georgia. But what are the details of Lee's charges? Well, let's take a quick moment to watch a mainstream news source interpret it in their own voice. We're talking about WGN News. Let's take a look.
One of the local co-defendants, Stephen Clifford Lee, with close ties to this Orland Park church. Of Stephen Cliffgard Lee or anyone at Living Word Lutheran Church on the 16,000 block of Wolf Road in Orland Park. A woman answering the phone earlier today telling us Lee stepped down as pastor a month ago. The 70-year-old religious minister now facing criminal charges after yesterday's bombshell 41-count indictment in Georgia. Lee indicted for violating Georgia's RICO laws, short for the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, 2 counts of criminal attempt to commit influencing witnesses and conspiracy to commit solicitation of false statements and writings influencing witnesses. The 98-page indictment alleging Lee, who was also a police chaplain according to published reports, tried to pressure Fulton County, Georgia poll worker Ruby Freeman into making false statements that she'd witnessed fraud on Election Day 2020, an effort that terrified Freeman and her daughter, also a Georgia poll worker.
Now, Pastor Lee, America's chaplain, he's represented by attorney David Shistokas, a legal veteran prepared to navigate the intricacies of this case, having previously faced challenges from District Attorney Fannie Willis. He also served as a Cook County Assistant State Attorney and is currently for Cook County and currently a Chicago Board of Elections hearing officer and attorney in private practice. So stay with us as we unravel the layers of the story. And don't miss my final thought at the end, where we delve into the broader implications that this has for our country and how you can have a direct impact on this case. Reverend Lee, Attorney Shistokas, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Gary. Thank you so much for having us. We appreciate the opportunity to be here and talk to your audience on Next News Network.
Now, Reverend Lee, before we delve into the recent events, can you share a little bit about your past, from serving as an NCIS special agent to assisting as a chaplain post 9/11 during Hurricane Katrina? I mean, your journey coast to coast, it sounds absolutely remarkable.
Yes, and Gary, thank you for the time here that you're spending with us. Yeah, NCIS, actually it was called NIS back when I served back in the 1980s during the Reagan years. And it was actually at the tail end of a law enforcement career. Most of my law enforcement was at the local level, both police departments and sheriff's departments. But over the years, I probably did every job that you could do in law enforcement except probably, I didn't do undercover work. But pretty much everything else I've done over the years, from patrol to corrections to juvenile officer, supervisor. I was a sergeant.
He was a SWAT team.
SWAT team guy, yeah, tactical guy. A lot of different experiences. I started out in the San Francisco Bay Area in California in 1973 as a young 21-year-old officer, and wound up leaving then NIS to go to seminary to become a pastor in 1988. And at that time, some of my law enforcement friends, my buddies, were saying, hey, this is good because you have ministered to us over the years as a Christian, as a layperson, and now you're going off to seminary to become a pastor, and we hope that you do become a law enforcement chaplain because you have a knack for that. And that indeed is what I did. I went to our seminary in Fort Wayne, Indiana from 88 to 92, got a master's of divinity, and during that time served both in the local churches, but also in addition to my full-time seminary schedule, I also served as Fort Wayne police chaplain during that time, and I've kept that up pretty consistently over the years, serving as chaplains various places like Colorado Springs, Colorado, and but then also in the 90s started a 501c3 nonprofit organization called Peace Officer Ministries, and served as founder and director of that for many years. And as part of that, we trained other chaplains. We worked with one of our seminaries to offer an accredited course in Christian police chaplaincy. And then also we, in addition to the training functions, we produced a special Bible edition for law enforcement called God's Word for Peace Officers. And I wrote an introduction Bible study guide for that. And over the years, we produced between 35,000, 40,000 of those in 5 main editions and some special editions as well.
Well, clearly you're doing the Lord's work out there.
Yes.
And, you know, we need more people like that who have the drive and the calling. You know, I see this as a calling on my own life the Lord placed on my heart as a young man. And but your calling is taking you not just, you know, to those locations, but I mean to like severe disaster zones where you have seen, you know, probably unspeakable things, and had to endure you know, really take in the pain of so many people and give them comfort. Give us some ideas of places that you have been.
Yeah, in addition to the other stuff I'm talking about, it's a laundry list, but I've also responded to what are called major incidents of national significance. That's a technical kind of term, and it began with Columbine High School back in 1999. We lived about 45 minutes away, and I found out about that over the car radio, and when I was going to lunch with my wife. 2 of our kids at the time were in high school, and I didn't hear the location. I was worried it might be Colorado Springs. It turned out to be in Littleton, Colorado, at Columbine High School. And so I had checked in with Colorado Springs PD, where I served as a chaplain, and the watch commander told me about that. And then I contacted the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms in D.C. at the Peer Support Unit, and because I was also serving as one of their chaplains. And they said, look, you're the closest chaplain we have to Columbine, and so you go ahead and head on up there and cover that, and you're our lead chaplain. And then they said, do you need any other resources or people? And I said, yeah. I said, I get John South and Murray Fricke. And so they flew up John from Phoenix, and Murray came down from Wyoming. And the 3 of us then served at Columbine as a chaplain. So Columbine, that was kind of the launching point. And from there, things like, and I'll try and run through it quickly here, but served at Ground Zero. I served on the United Airlines Flight 93 crisis team, the one that went down in Shanksville, and served at their destination airport in San Francisco, and served at Ground Zero. I served FEMA as a chaplaincy coordinator at the Jacob Javits Convention Center, where they were hosting the urban search and rescue teams. And I set up a schedule of chaplains to cover that facility 24/7 and be a spiritual support resource for the workers who were trying to find survivors at Ground Zero.
Wow.
And then later, I chaplained the crew on site that Claude Wytak put together with AMEC Corporation. He was covering the north side of Ground Zero, and he delegated Danny Collins and some other people to extract what had been found inside Building 6 and preserve it. We mounted it up on the pedestrian bridge abutment on West Side Highway. The bridge had been destroyed by the collapse of the North Tower. And we put it up there in the middle of the night, and I went on up and did a little dedication in the middle of the night after we pulled it out and had it prepped all day long. And I also stood by during that basically a 24-hour period when a lot of the officers and firefighters came by, and one of them, John LaPointe, construction worker, early on, he said, hey, Chaplain Lee, he said, would it be inappropriate for me to write my name on the cross? And I said, no, absolutely not. I said, because that's an actual physical representation of a spiritual truth, that all of our names are written on the cross of Christ.
Amen.
And so he wrote his name. He was actually the first one to write his name on there. I got a picture of him doing that. And then as the workers, firefighters, police officers came by, they would write their own names and write the names of those first responders who'd been killed. 343 firefighters, 23 NYPD officers, 37 Port Authority officers who were killed. And then I wrote a poem on the cross too. And that cross is now in the 9/11 Museum in Lower Manhattan there, a beautiful museum, and people should see that. At the end of the tour, the displays, you can find that cross, and I wrote my name on it too. If you look over the railing, you can see where I wrote my name.
I was just there at Ground Zero just a couple weeks back. We were there for an event, and it's a remarkable place, and so much pain. But to know that you were there, able to minister to those people who were affected directly, you gave a lot of people comfort. And I want to shift to your attorney now, because I want to get into the heart of this situation. This is a big deal. We're talking about the fourth indictment of the president, and now you're swept up in it. Attorney Shistokas, given that you have successfully defended already against DA Fani Willis before, what is your perspective on the current indictment's overall credibility, especially concerning that they're using the Georgia RICO Act in this case?
Yeah, Gary, when you mentioned the successful before, just last year, of course, the Georgia Special Purpose Grand Jury sent a subpoena out from Ms. Willis and actually the supervising judge of that grand jury, McBurney, to Kendall County, Illinois, which is where Reverend Lee lives, a subpoena, just to so people know that the authority of a state to compel somebody's testimony in their court ends at the borders of the state. So unless you get the cooperation of a state where somebody lives, some witness that you're looking for lives, you don't have the ability to bring them there. And to the best of my knowledge, of course, the special purpose grand jury that was investigating what ultimately became these RICO charges had a wide net spread around the entire country and trying to get witnesses. And one of the witnesses that they were interested in having for the special purpose grand jury was Reverend Stephen Lee. And so they sent a subpoena to Kendall County, Illinois, and we had hearings in Kendall County about Reverend Lee's appearance in Atlanta. And to the best of my knowledge, we're the only people in the country that were successfully able to have that subpoena quashed. That is, the judge in Kendall County ultimately said, no, Reverend Lee does not have to go to Georgia. There's some a little bit of complex things there, but the important thing in the end was that the judge said he made a specific finding that Reverend Lee was not a material witness to the investigation. And that's a court finding here in Illinois, that he's not a material witness. So last week, when I woke up to see the indictments and find out that Reverend Lee had been indicted along with President Trump and 17 others, I was pretty astounded, because we had a finding here in Illinois. They didn't even have enough evidence to have him become a witness, let alone become a defendant. But to my knowledge, we're the only people that successfully challenged the subpoena to have somebody go and testify before the grand jury. So effectively, we've already beaten the grand jury and the people of Fulton County. The district attorney of Fulton County have already beaten them in court one time previously, successfully. And we expect to be, before we get into some details, we expect to again. We're very optimistic at the chances, although these are extraordinarily, that does not minimize the charges. There's charges under the RICO Act of Georgia. Georgia has its own RICO Act. RICO stands for Racketeering, Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act. And that act is generally put together in the first place to primarily get at organized crime or street gangs or people that are involved in things of the violent nature, drug dealers, drug cartels, those kinds of things. And what it involves is a group of people that commit a series of different crimes for the purpose of achieving a common goal. They call it an enterprise, for being part of an enterprise with a common goal as the aim. And the interesting thing about the Georgia RICO Act, for somebody to be convicted under that, they personally have to have been found guilty of 2 independent, what they call predicate felonies. And these predicate felonies, there's about 40 of them listed in the act and related acts. And so you have to be convicted. You have to be convicted of 2 of those, and that has to be in furtherance of the business enterprise. And at the moment, the language of the indictment shows 161 what they call overt acts in furtherance of a conspiracy. There, you do not find the language of the statute any place in the indictment.
Okay, so there's been a lot of talk about this overt acts in the indictment. So clarify for our viewers, what is the distinction between overt acts and criminal acts in this context?
Yeah, well, take Reverend Lee for an example. They list they list one situation where he knocked on a door, a neighbor's door, and then he knocked on another door, and they call those overt acts as part of advancing the theoretical effort to overturn the presidential election results in Georgia. And then they say that Reverend Lee was on a couple of phone calls that were the purpose of which was to overturn the election. Those obviously.
Okay, so we're talking about knocking on a door now, and a phone call.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's in essence. If people download you can download an indictment. It's available you can find it any place on the internet. Counts 20 and 21 involve Reverend Lee, and counts 30 and 31 involve Reverend Lee. You read counts 20 and 21. He knocked on the door of a neighbor of an election worker, is the allegation, and then he knocked on the election worker's door.
Did anyone answer the door?
At there's an allegation about the neighbor. You know, they haven't, but the essence, they don't even really say that. That's not really even in the indictment. Whether there's certainly nothing in the indictment indicating he had a conversation with anybody.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, if you don't, from my perspective, you know, from an outsider looking in, if there's no interaction with anybody, you can't even.
Where's the crime?
Where's the crime?
Yeah.
You know, like people come to my door all the time. You know, they're trying to sell us mulch, or they want to. Oh, you got hail damage, or you know, hey, we're in the neighborhood selling coupons. You know, what does that mean?
You got your Jehovah's Witnesses.
You got the Jehovah's Witness come around.
Yeah.
You don't know who's at the door.
The folks from the Latter-day Saints, they're all coming by. You know, there's all kinds of folks coming by and knocking on doors for any. And where's the crime there?
Yeah,
I don't know.
So what does this case mean? What are the implications if the case is successful, if it were to succeed? The basic underpinnings of organized society.
The basic underpinnings of organized society are under attack. The people that are cheering on this case, and actually the other cases involving President Trump, have no understanding of the damage that will be done to the society if any of these cases are successful. In the Georgia RICO case, there's John Eastman, is a well-respected constitutional lawyer, is indicted for giving legal advice. There is Jenna Ellis and Rudy Giuliani are indicted for talking to various legislatures around the country and explaining to them what the legislatures have as authority under the United States Constitution. There is, of course, the telephone calls and door knocking that's there. There's tweets that are supposedly illegal. It's incredible. But what will happen is lawyers will not be able to give advice. There's one other matter that there's actually among the 161 overt acts, they accuse Jenna Ellis and Sidney Powell of filing a lawsuit. This is it's utter insanity, Gary. But if they're successful on this, that means that we will have destroyed the systems of advocacy and adversarial procedure, because now you can no longer contest an election. You have to, we said this is the result, so sit down and shut up and expect what we said is true. And that's the end result.
So,
yeah,
Mr. Shistokas, for the last, for the entirety of the 4 years that President Trump was in the Oval Office, we heard every single day from CNN, MSNBC, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, every single one of them questioned the results of the election. They repeatedly stated that Donald Trump was an illegitimate president, going on speaking tours, selling books on these issues. So, what's happened here? Like, why? I mean, this is clear, black and white, what they did and what they said, and now all of a sudden someone on the other side does it. How can these people be weaponizing the judicial system in this capacity when they were the very same people questioning Trump's legitimacy for 4 years?
It does drive you nuts when you walk into a courtroom and you actually speak about the actual law, and the people on the other team don't care. They just make it up. The Jack Smith, the J6 matters, that he's charged is just made up. They're regarding Mar-a-Lago and the documents case. There's something called the Presidential Records Act that actually governs how these matters are handled. It's not by a federal crime. Gary, I wish I could tell you how frustrating it is to walk into a courtroom, make an actual legal argument, and the people go, "But Donald Trump," and that's the essence of the argument. It's very scary, but what you can't emphasize enough is the people that are cheering this on and thinking that it's an okay thing to get President Trump for whatever reason they want. They don't know the damage that they're doing to everybody else and the danger that they put themselves in. If they can convict Mr. Trump and America's chaplain on knocking on a door and giving a speech, there is no law left in America. It is the kind of the equivalent of the Joseph Stalin's Mr. Beria, who says, "Show me the man, I'll show you the crime," kind of thing. And it's absolute dictatorship, and everything they accuse President Trump of being is what they're doing.
Now I want to go back to the knocking on the door, the phone call.
Yeah.
These are the primary actions in question. How do you interpret these just within the scope of legal definitions of crime?
Every crime is supposed to have an element or a series of elements. And the elements say, you commit these acts, and this act is deemed to be illegal. And you have to commit this act with a certain, what they call mens rea, or certain kind of intent in your mind. And the intent has to be basically a criminal intent, although under certain circumstances you can be guilty of something so negligent that it's out of the realm of regular society. But typically you need to have a criminal intention to, in fact, commit the act that is illegal. There is nothing that I've yet seen to make the door knocking illegal. They try and connect it up with a statute that has to do with intimidating a witness or influencing a witness. But at this particular point in time, there was no actions pending. There were no cases going on at the moment that they're saying Reverend Lee involved himself and knocked on a door and it's just kind of interesting. We heard a little bit from Reverend Lee about his situation with NYPD and Columbine. He was also chaplain in Katrina. He was also at Hurricane Irma. America was in crisis at that particular point in time, and Pastor Lee's presence in Georgia is not inconsistent with his history of being there when there's a crisis in America. And so, they have to prove some sort of criminal intent associated with knocking on the door, and I don't believe they're going to be able to do this.
Well, we're talking about, ministering in the faith. So it seems like Christianity is under assault here.
You can add that to the list. The list, but again, you destroy attorney-client privilege, you destroy freedom of religion, you destroy the First Amendment freedom of speech. You cannot no longer lobby the legislature, providing information about what constitutional authority a legislature has. So there goes your petition to government for redress of grievances. That goes out the window. Everything is under attack in these 4 cases.
Wow.
Everything is under attack. Everything American is under attack. And so people have no comprehension of the danger they're putting themselves in by cheering on these matters. There's just no analysis. And it's so sad to see other folks, other media outlets going, oh, I've heard somebody say this is the biggest case since Plessy versus Ferguson or since Brown versus the Board of Education. I'll tell you what, if those cases, if they were successful in any of these prosecutions, they may be right, because these cases will have destroyed America.
Given the extensive list of the criminal actions that are listed in this RICO Act, where does this case fit in, especially considering the events that transpired with Ruby Freeman?
Sometimes it's very difficult to give a legitimate legal answer to something that's been constructed in fantasy. And it's awfully frustrating in terms of saying where does this fit in, because at the moment they really don't fit in. There's no precedent in American law for the kinds of things that they are calling predicate. They're calling, and let's back up for a moment. If you go through the 161 counts, you will see where they say this is an overt act in furtherance, right? The statute, the RICO statute, says each individual has to be guilty of 2 predicate crimes. It doesn't say you have. It doesn't say you have
2 crimes.
2 predicate crimes. That means that you have to be guilty of. You have to be guilty of intimidating a witness. You have to be guilty of inciting violence. You have to be guilty of a false document.
Okay, so proven guilty already ahead of this?
They have to.
They got to prove the guilty in this case, and then they can get the other stuff to
Then
stick?
they can get the RICO. Then they can get to the RICO. It has to be. You have to have the predicate acts within the case before you get to the RICO. And the interesting thing about that as well is that in many, there are certain classes of Georgia felonies that have only 2-year statutes of limitations. Many of them have 4-year statutes of limitations. But if it's within the confines of a RICO case, there's a 5-year statute of limitations. So many of these actions would have had the statute of limitations run unless it was wrapped within a RICO case, because of course they happened back in 2020.
Okay, so how many criminal charges are in this RICO? You said 160?
41.
41.
40. There's 41 within those charges, but like in Reverend Lee's, one of Reverend Lee's counts, there's about 4 people all in the same count.
And they have to prove at least 2 of those. I mean, it sounds
like they have to prove him twice guilty of 2 criminal acts, not knocking on the doors, but 2 criminal acts. And as I say, the indictment itself does not make an allegation that there's 2 criminal acts. They make an allegation that there are overt acts in furtherance of the conspiracy. This does not track the language of the statute. It would be an embarrassment for a first-year law student to have written this document, and it's amazing that I see talking head lawyers talking about this magnificent piece of work.
Well, it sounds like there's so many layers to this case. Like they got a lot to prove here to get this whole thing to stick. And from what I can tell, I don't think it's going to stick.
Well, we're certainly.
I'm not a lawyer, though.
But you play one on TV.
I play one on television.
Yeah, you play one on TV.
Yeah.
It's certainly the fact that she's pushing for some sort of trial in March or whatever that's theoretical. That's not going to happen, where she wants to have all 19. We have the first salvo from Mark Meadows that is trying to remove the case to federal court.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second, because that's another big story connected to this case. Meadows is trying to get this thing dismissed, move it out of federal court. What's his strategy there, and how does it impact your client?
There is, in fact, a federal law that indicates that if, in fact, a federal official is charged with a crime involving his official duties or actions that would take place in his official capacity, that case can, in fact, be removed and tried in a federal court rather than in a state court, even though it's a state charge. Mr. Meadows, at the time of most of the activities that he's alleged to have been involved in, was chief of staff to the President of the United States, certainly a pretty darn high-ranking federal official. And his argument is that he falls within that provision of federal law to have that case moved to federal court. And Ms. Willis, the district attorney for Fulton County, who is obviously the person behind this going forward, has certainly stated her intention to try all the defendants all at one time, all in the same case. So obviously they're going to be opposing that move to take the case to federal court. President Trump made a similar argument in New York without success, but frankly, the New York allegations do not relate to his duties as president, and did not occur in that time frame. But the allegations here directly related to President Trump's activities as president, directly relate to Mr. Meadows' position as chief of staff, and so I believe they have a strong argument to remove this to federal court. How that winds up impacting the rest of the defendants in this matter is yet to be seen. But but because of that kind of litigation, there's a very good probability that this case won't see a jury till after Donald Trump's likely president again.
Let's just hope that happens.
Well, at least it'll be after the election, after the next president is elected. And so there's no real probability that this is going to take place in the next year. You've got the 19 defendants. Each one of them has their own opportunities to file appropriate motions, perhaps motions to quash, perhaps motions to challenge, maybe even challenge the indictments because of some of the irregularities of the grand jury itself. Among the irregularities certainly had to do with the pre-publication of the indictments before the grand jury even voted. And so the sanctity of the jury had been broken prior to the indictments being issued. There's going to be challenges on that in that regard. There's going to be challenges of the breaking of attorney-client privilege. There's going to be challenges to all kinds of evidence, and each one of us attorneys as it applies to our individual clients, has the ability to litigate each one of those issues separately. And so
this is a monstrous case with that many people, that many lawyers. Yeah, it's going to take some time to
I don't know where they're going to get all the chairs.
Wow. Reverend Lee, how has this indictment impacted your personal, your professional life, especially given your history of service?
Well, obviously, this is unique. I'm 70 years old and never seen anything like this in my lifetime. But here's the issue for me. And, I have a wonderful support system. My wife, we've been married 46 years, and she's very supportive. My response to that is in view of the things I've been involved in and witnessed over the years, that just doesn't really matter to me as much as some other things matter. And I use this as a general statement about all of the cop funerals I've been to, burying people that have served and protected America, who have laid down their lives, not for a paycheck, because there's not enough money in the world to compensate for loss of life. All the people, and I'm thinking of some just as I'm talking here, and a lot of people don't have a voice, and a lot of people don't have the ability to do some of the things that I've done. And again, speaking generally about history, and I feel like the Lord has put me in a spot to serve and to protect in some ways that maybe I have a particular skill set and experience to offer service. And that's the important thing. And my attitude should be no other than that, is protect and serve. And whether it's pastoring a church like I do now, or serving as a chaplain, being at these various scenes all the way up to including things like the hotel shooting in Las Vegas, or the Haiti earthquake, or earthquake and tsunami in American Samoa, or, it's a long, long list. I feel privileged and honored to serve. I'm not a politician. This is not my intent. Politics and power games and all of that stuff, this is not me. I hope and pray that I'm always based on principle, and in terms of being a Christian and a Christian pastor and chaplain, that principle is defined by the Word of God, the Scriptures, and the gospel of Jesus Christ. And in terms of my responsibilities as a citizen, I am one of the people. In the preamble of the Constitution, it says, "We the people." And obviously we work through delegated authority, but we all have a responsibility. And I need to be consistent. There are different vows. My ordination vows are different than my oath of office I took as an officer and then later as a special agent. But they're complementary, not contradictory vows and oaths. But I take them both very seriously, and one doesn't go away just because I changed the role, because I'm still a citizen of this country, and people need help. People need assistance. And that's what I'm about. It's about principle. It's not about power games or anything like that. That's all I got to say about that.
So I want to ask you, first of all, we have the picture here is of you, and we put a picture with Trump. Obviously, you're in the lineup with him. Have you ever met the man? And what's it like? You suddenly wake up one morning and now you see your name listed as a defendant alongside the former president of the United States. I mean, that's got to be pretty dramatic.
Yeah. No, I've never met former President Trump. And it's an out-of-body experience, let me put it that way. What's going on now, I never would have figured this. You could probably imagine that in my lifetime I've had some experience in the legal system, up to and including homicides, foreign counterintelligence work, counterterrorism, a lot of different things at both the local and the federal level. Less so in the federal than the local, but still, it's there. And now to be on the other side of the equation, especially with certain circumstances, you know what? God is on his throne. And we pray that the right will be known. And again, I'm not a politician, and I try and avoid those kinds of things in the work that I've done in law enforcement and as a pastor and as a chaplain. But yeah.
As a chaplain, I want to ask you a question. Ephesians 6:12 is one of my favorite scriptures.
The armor of God.
We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness in this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. And it seems like every corner of the United States is under attack, whether it's in the schools, whether it's at the elections, whether it's in the corporations or on television or in Hollywood, or it seems like it's everywhere. How do you see all these attacks playing into the spiritual war, the greater spiritual war in this country?
Well, and that's a perspective I try to keep, what you're alluding to there. And I actually preached about that yesterday at church, and talk about who the real enemy is. And it's Satan. It's evil. And that Jesus Christ came to this world because God so loved the
Amen.
world, that whoever believes in him will be saved. And so I can't lose my perspective about who I am and what my purpose is in terms of the gospel of Jesus Christ, that I'm here to minister that gospel, proclaim that gospel, and live that gospel to a world that's hurting. And everybody needs God's grace, everybody. And God is love. And ultimately, we are supposed to be expressions of that love. And I think that I have tried and in my best and done the job of trying to be compassionate and be loving, whether I'm serving as an officer, protecting and serving life and restraining evil, or as a pastor to bring comfort, or as a chaplain at Ground Zero, or many of these other places, bringing drinking water to a rest home, a convalescent home that's stranded in floodwaters from Hurricane Harvey in East Texas, and bringing people water. So
my prayer right now, Pastor, is that the Lord will help soften the hearts of those people who are trying to take this country down, and let the scales fall from their eyes so that they can see the truth and damage that they're doing. Sweeping up people like yourself in the cases like this, and as your attorney was reflecting on just how much damage is being done to the judicial system, to our republic, through all these indictments. I mean, this one is really dangerous, and that's why I want to go back to you, Mr. Shistokas, considering the alleged jury tampering by the DA, the leaking of these of the indictments and the grand jury. How do you foresee this impacting the case's proceedings? You touched on it briefly, and I want to get a little deeper into that.
I did touch on it briefly. In the certainly at the moment we have this evidence, public evidence in the public realm that the aspects of the indictments were, for all practical purposes, published before the grand jury voted on them, in which case they were not even legal documents. And to the extent that there's been leaks, and the extent that there's been people providing information to the news, that actually gives the ability for the attorneys for the defendants to challenge the indictments themselves and challenge the actual conduct of the grand jury. To the extent that Georgia is a strange place from a legal perspective. I love Atlanta in other ways, but it's a strange place from a legal perspective. And one of which is something this creature they called special purpose grand jury that doesn't exist anywhere in the world except in Georgia, and allows them to investigate but does not allow them to indict. So the grand jury that did the bulk of the investigation that they relied on to issue these indictments from this general grand jury, which was convened after the special purpose grand jury finished its work and issued a report, they didn't really do the work themselves. They relied on the work of another grand jury to issue these indictments. There is reason to believe that particular approach was not a legal one. Grand juries are supposed to do their own work and then issue their own indictments. This is an issue going on in the other case in Florida, because the Florida indictments were issued primarily on work of the grand jury done in Washington, D.C. And so they're playing so fast and loose, Gary, with so much of our system. It's just undependable and it's dangerous.
So how did the grand jury vote get published? I mean, I saw how they've tried to backtrack it, but at the same time, it got published. It ended up on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Everyone's retweeting it or reposting it.
Before they voted.
Before they even voted. So how does that legal process work when that
somebody committed a crime, Gary? Somebody committed a crime because it's a criminal act to reveal the workings of the grand jury, the votes of the grand jury, the end result of their work. It's a criminal act to, in fact, publish or, let's say, leak that information. But of course, they're on the team that's involved with the prosecution, and so who's going to prosecute them? That's the sad state that we're in these days. You got your Hunter situation. Who's gonna really? They tried to give him immunity for his life. So we need to. The people need to really take back control of the government. We're going to fight these battles as best we can through the courts. There are some issues that we don't expect to have favorable outcome in some situations from the Georgia Superior Court judges that may wind up in federal courts under appeal under a process called habeas corpus. It can get very, very confusing, but it's the only reason it's confusing is the people in Georgia and elsewhere are themselves not following the law. That was one of the issues in how we had the subpoena quashed for Reverend Lee here in Illinois. There's the a state's authority to compel somebody's testimony ends at their borders, and so you have to get the cooperation of the other state. But in terms of the cooperation of the state, you have to follow the other state's laws. I pointed out to the judge in Illinois, Georgia's request to have Reverend Lee come did not comply with Illinois law. We had a decent and fair judge that said, "You're right, this is the law," and they didn't even comply with the law in terms of what was necessary to have somebody from Illinois compelled to go to Georgia. And we can only hope that as things progress, we get to judges that in fact follow the law, because there's so much places where they're not following the law.
And that's the truth. Now, the RICO law in Georgia.
Yeah.
It was initially modeled to tackle mafia bosses.
Yeah.
I'm trying to draw a parallel here. I mean, yeah, we can argue that a lot of government officials do act like mafia bosses these days. I mean, we are, in the state of Illinois, which, the mob seems to have just now been elected into office. But that's another conversation. So how does this case compare to the law's original intent with RICO mafia bosses in Georgia?
Apparently, Ms. Willis is very, very proud of her theories to extend RICO to other kinds of things. She has a case. There's a case where she got some convictions that are now on appeal, where she used the RICO case for involving school teachers that were doing things to alter grades to increase the benefits to the school, the outcome of the student tests, and somehow or other, she's decided to paint the school teachers as RICO participants in a general criminal enterprise. And she did get convictions in that. But those convictions right now are, in fact, on appeal. They've got some wrapper in terms of them being complicated and going on for a long time. There's a wrapper trial involving some RICO charges also going on in Fulton County right now, even as we speak, that started in March, and they have not even picked one juror yet. And so I don't know.
Sounds like she's got a long road ahead of her.
Yeah.
Especially with the visibility of this case. You're talking about a rapper. We're talking about a former president, and former members of his administration, and of course your client.
Of course that, and which brings up a separate question, and that is when you read reports, some people report in the papers that perhaps President Trump's legal fees may run into tens of the millions of dollars, maybe $30-40 million they talk about. Reverend Lee, as you've seen, has lived a life of service. He's not lived a life of making money. It's not been about money. It's been about service. And if I may say, it's not my place, but Reverend Lee is not a man capable of putting together $30 or $40 million for a defense. And so and strangely enough, my work for Reverend Lee is not going to be just me. We have to have local counsel in Georgia. We have to have extra staff here that we're going to add to work on this, to do things. We actually, given the circumstances, we now have somebody working on public relations because we've been inundated with the New York Times, the Washington Post, everybody around, and so we have to be able to respond to those people.
I think you're talking about the Illinois Family Institute. They've stepped up,
yes,
significantly. They're a 501c3. And people, you bring it up, we do have a link down below where people can support the legal defense. We've been talking about this for quite some time on the show. We haven't even brought up the opportunity for people to participate, to take action, to support this case. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, the Illinois Family Institute is one of the premier pro-life Christian organizations in the state of Illinois. And Reverend David Smith, who's the leader of Illinois Family Institute, has a belief in Reverend Lee's innocence and that he deserves the best service possible we're going to be able to give him. And that gets to be expensive. And so Illinois Family Institute does, in fact, have at illinoisfamily.org/contribute. And if they get Reverend Lee, there's a Pastor Lee legal defense fund. People pull down that menu, they can contribute to Reverend Lee's defense. And we're so happy and so proud that we've got that association with Illinois Family Institute. They're one of the great organizations of the state of Illinois. And we have to thank David Smith for that assistance. And we thank anybody that can help out, because the expenses for Reverend Lee are going to go beyond that. He just bought a new truck, right? Recently. Excuse me. Well, it's new to him. It's a used F-150. I'm not a good truck guy, but Reverend Lee's considering getting rid of the truck he just bought because of the expenses that are mounting against him for what's only 5 days old now. It's only, it's very short. We woke up in the middle of the week last week to this situation where Illinois judge says he wasn't even a material witness, and yet the people in Georgia says no, he's a criminal. To accuse this good and decent man of being a criminal is just horrendous situation. And we hope that people will step up and help out and help the Reverend Lee, who has been a blessing and a hope to so many people across the country, actually, and around the world. You heard him mention American Samoa. You heard him mention Haiti. There's been places where he's been a comfort, but it's not just it's not just that physical comfort. He physically delivers water. He physically helps the people out in so many situations. I feel so blessed to be involved with Reverend Lee personally. That feels like a blessing to me. But it's going to be for us to be in a situation where we're in this huge battle against a situation where they project President Trump's legal bills to be in the millions. Reverend Lee needs it's now time for Reverend Lee to get help from all the people that he's helped.
Amen to that. Reverend Lee, they call you America's chaplain, and as this case unfolds and you navigate these challenging waters, what message do you have for those who have supported you throughout your journey?
I appreciate the question. It brings a smile on my face because I've had so much love and so much support from the family, from the extended family, from my wonderful church people. It's a small little church. I'm officially retired, but I serve there as their only pastor, their sole pastor. And I've been there longer than I thought would be necessary. But the Lord's blessed that relationship there. Their folks there are wonderful. They're very concerned. And I want to say thank you to them, to my family, to my friends around the world. I know that this is a shock to all of these people, what has transpired here. And in the days ahead, I know that there's going to be a lot of support. It's not just about me. It's about the gospel and supporting the Lord's work. And I'm just very, very grateful and simply say thank you to all those folks. And God's on His throne. I'll be okay. And we don't trust circumstances. We trust the Lord.
Amen.
He says he'll be okay, but I want to point out from one other thing. This case, these charges that they've lodged against Reverend Lee, upon conviction, have a mandatory minimum 5 years in prison. Carries up to a 20-year possible sentence, but the judge does not have discretion. There is no probation. There's no community service work. It's a mandatory minimum 5 years in a Georgia state prison that the crimes that he's charged with carry. We're going to work our tails off to successfully defend these matters. But I just don't want people to think that this is not serious. It's really, definitely serious business.
Well, you guys are right there on the forefront, fighting for this country, fighting for our republic. Attorney Shistokas, you have been all around the country. I've followed your work extensively through 2020. So you've seen it all. And now, we find ourselves back fighting in 2020 again with this specific case. We thought it was behind us. We thought we could move forward, but they just want to keep, dragging everyone back into this because they are so terrified of President Trump returning to the Oval Office and finally draining the swamp, which is, of course, what needs to be done. So thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. And folks, here's the deal. America stands at a pivotal juncture, as we've seen tonight with Reverend Lee's story, America's chaplain. The lines between justice, politics, and personal vendettas are becoming worryingly blurred. It's not just about one man's plight, but a reflection of a system that sometimes seems more interested in making headlines than upholding justice. Lee's history of service to this nation is undeniable, yet he's found himself entangled in a web that has more to do with political theater than actual wrongdoing. Attorney Shistokas' insights tonight further underscore the nuances that often get lost in mainstream narratives, and we must ask ourselves, if a man of such honor can be so easily ensnared, what does it signify for the average citizen? This case matters because it's a mirror to our times, a call to remain vigilant and demand transparency and fairness. And you can have a direct impact on this case by supporting the defense of America's chaplain, Reverend Lee. The Illinois Family Institute is accepting contributions to his legal defense fund through the link that is in the description. Be sure to designate your gift to Pastor Lee Legal Defense Fund. I want to thank you, Reverend Lee and Attorney Shistokas, for reminding us of the stakes.
Thank you, Gary, for providing this platform, providing the opportunity for America to get to know this amazing man that I feel so blessed that under very difficult circumstances that have brought us together, but I feel so blessed to have had the opportunity to get to know him. And I feel so very, very honored to know this man. I mentioned one last thing. He does preach on Sundays, and it is live streamed. So if somebody wants to see, I was in church yesterday, so if you want to look up the Living Word Church in Orland Park and find a live stream on YouTube, please go see Reverend Lee preach. It was just a heartwarming experience yesterday. He talked about some experiences in Africa, and we talk about things that he did around the world. It's just amazing. He's just an amazing spiritual leader among every other thing. So folks can watch him live stream.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your fight. And everyone watching, remember the stakes are so high. Our nation's on the line. Take action. Hit the link down below. Make a contribution. Give something. Because they need your help. America needs your help. The president needs your help. And the time to act is now. Welcome to the comments section. This is where we dive into the bustling world of our YouTube community and spotlight your thoughts, opinions, and reactions. It's you, our dedicated viewers, that fuel our content and drive our conversation. So let's delve in and see what's been on your minds this week. On the video titled Trump Grand Jury Gets Horrible News, Charlotte Starr said, "Were these same people upset when BLM Antifa threatened Supreme Court justice at their homes?" Well, it's essential to remember that each event and context differs. The dynamics surrounding the Supreme Court threats and grand jury news are distinct. But your concern highlights the importance of constant responses to all threats to our republic. On the video titled Biden White House Rocked by Resignation, Thomas, he said, "I hope Biden is put under the same pressure the Dems have put on Trump. Biden and those surrounding him need to be held accountable." Every administration faces its challenges and scrutiny, as they should in a republic. The goal is always to ensure that leaders are held accountable, regardless of their party affiliations. And on the video titled Boom! Georgia DA Impeachment Begins, Maryland said, "She's a typical Democrat, filing bogus charges just to stop a political opponent who's leading the polls during an election season." Sincerely, though, yes, it's vital to await all the evidence and proceedings before passing judgment, but the judicial process is in place to ensure that justice is served based on facts and not political affiliations. But we can all read between the lines, can't we? We know what's going on. On the video titled DeSantis Playbook Leaked, here's what it reveals. Marish said DeSantis wasting his breath. Trump will be our president again. God bless Trump. God bless America. Political landscapes are ever-changing and sentiments are strong across the board. It's crucial to respect everyone's opinion while striving for a unified country where all voices are heard. But yeah, he should have probably sat this one out. And then also, some of these people are too out of touch to know they don't have a chance against President Trump. A couple of them could end up being VP picks, but DeSantis and Christie aren't in that category. While predicting political outcomes is a challenge, especially in such a dynamic environment. While some might see potential VP picks, others might see potential leaders. It's all about perspective and the evolving political scene. So thank you deeply for sharing your comments. Each contribution enriches our discussions, bringing diverse perspectives and fostering a vibrant community. It's this active engagement that makes our platform thrive. We value your input and look forward to highlighting more of your thoughts in our next The Comments section. Let's keep these conversations going. On this evening's Looking at You Spotlight, we turn our attention to a voice that's constantly been at the crossroads of media fervor and political discourse. Elijah Schaffer. A journalist and commentator, he possesses an uncanny ability to remain resilient in an era where voices can be silenced with a mere click or a tweet. Recent events seem to suggest Elijah joined the ranks of the canceled. Rumors swirled, media outlets speculated, and yet, defying all odds and expectation, there he was. Not just present at an event from which he was reportedly barred, but taking to the stage with gusto and purpose. It's emblematic of Elijah's journey, constantly unpredictable and always impassioned. Watch this.
I really feel grateful for being invited here as an American, as the media said, as somebody who was canceled from speaking here. I don't know how it happened, but I still ended up on the stage. Guess you were wrong, media, again. I just want to say, I hope to see you guys next year. And in the American patriotic spirit, and of course, in the spirit of patriotism for this country, as we say, may God bless the United States of America, and may God bless the great country of Australia, and may the wrath of heaven, the wrath of God be poured out on these communist bastards and these establishment regimes that are destroying this country from the inside. Thank you so much.
Oh, wow. In his remarks, Elijah's gratitude from the platform was palpable. His words drew a bridge between two countries, the United States and Australia, both navigating their unique challenges, yet bound by the enduring spirit of patriotism. His wishes for the prosperity and blessings of both nations resonated with the audience, but as those who followed Schaffer would know, he seldom stops at pleasantries. The fiery pivot he delivered, a scathing rebuke to forces he perceived as detrimental, invoking divine retribution on the communist bastards and establishment regimes. It's a juxtaposition that is so uniquely Elijah, a mix of blessings for nations he loves and fierce denunciations of entities he perceives as threats. It's moments like these that remind us of the importance of diverse voices in our societal tapestry. Agree or disagree with Elijah Schaffer, one cannot deny his commitment to his beliefs and his undeterred spirit in voicing them. Today, Elijah, with admiration for your tenacity and dedication to dialogue, we are looking at you. Tonight we've navigated through a maze of stories, each critical in its own right, but united in illustrating a shifting American landscape. President Trump's unprecedented debate decision is emblematic of a world where traditional platforms are contending with newer direct avenues of communication. Meanwhile, as we steer towards a greener future, the perils of over-reliance on foreign mineral reserves cast shadows on our path to energy independence. The actions of the border wall materials sparks introspection about our defense priorities, highlighting the tightrope we walk between fiscal prudence and national security. And then there's the shifting narrative around Trump's popularity, even from staunchly pro-Democrat outlets signifying the unpredictability of the political winds. But it's Stephen Miller's recent revelations that perhaps resonate the most. The idea that our justice system, a pillar of democracy, a pillar of our republic, could potentially be weaponized to serve political agendas is deeply unsettling. It reminds us that our institutions, no matter how steadfast they appear, are vulnerable to the whims of partisanship. In all these stories, there's a call to action for every American, to be vigilant, to be informed, and most importantly, to champion integrity above all. And most importantly, the revelations from our guest tonight. The co-defendant in the Georgia case with Donald Trump, and they're being victimized in this case, is a warning for all Americans. And that wraps up our show for today. A heartfelt thank you to Angie for her insightful news briefs, and to all of you who joined our conversation in our live chat. Your engagement and participation fuel our discourse. In a world where shifting narratives and unpredictable political winds keep us on our toes, it's essential to find stability where we can. And just as gold has remained steadfast amid the tumultuous ebb and flow of the dollar's value since the 70s, so can you anchor your investments in reliability. With the potential for inflation looming, investing in gold with Noble Gold Investments is like anchoring your ship in a storm. And don't miss their generous offer, a free quarter-ounce gold standard coin. Visit noblegoldinvestments.com or dial 877-646-5347. They are a sponsor of this program. They make it all possible. So even if you're not investing, give them a call. The number's right there on the screen. And tell them thank you, because they're the gold company that I trust. And thank you for making N3 Primetime a part of your evening. If this show resonated with you, spread the word and share the link with your friends. Remember, together we can strive towards a brighter and unified America. I'm Gary Franchi. My goal isn't to have you follow, but to inspire leadership in each one of you. Good night, and take care.